Welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus. We are joined by Rabbi Sholem Fishbane, Kashrus Administrator of the Chicago Rabbinical Council and Executive Director of ACO, the Association of Kashrus Organizations. Rabbi Fishbane, I'd like to discuss today a very prevalent topic, something that comes up all the time for young and old, and that is slurpees. May one purchase a slurpee in a Wawa, a 7-Eleven, a Quick Check? They all have these similar slurpee type machines.
Slushy type of drinks.
Mm-hmm. And if yes, what type of drinks? What should people know?
Great question. When you're a kid, this is it, right? That and Oreos. So Slurpees is actually owned. The name Slurpees is owned by 7. So let's start with 7-Eleven. The way it works is, in all of these types of machines, is you have the dispenser. That's what you see. It has a hose, and it goes to the back behind a door that has these boxes. That's the flavor base. So the answer is going...
Is that like a syrup?
Syrup.
Syrup,
The
okay.
flavor base. If that box is kosher, the Slurpee will be kosher. That's the simple answer, okay? So the very, very best way to buy a Slurpee or a slushie, if you're in a city, like we have in Chicago, one store, one 7-Eleven, that we actually certify. I will tell you, we don't charge them anything. This is a service to the community, but they allow us to go into the back. Anytime they get a new flavor, they check with us. So we certify the Slurpee machine on this particular place on Touhy Avenue, and everything's great. We had another 7-Eleven that just wasn't following the rules. Again, they don't pay, so they don't remember to, and they were bringing in Slurpee flavors or whatnot, so we pulled the free hashgacha. Mm-hmm. That's the best. If you're in a city that has hashgacha, go there. What about if you're not, which is the vast, vast majority? The best thing to do then is go over to the person and say, look, I keep kosher. Is it okay if I look at the flavor box to make sure it's kosher? Many times you want to buy purple, sugary, hyper, I'm sure that's not the real name. Then you could, if you'll see a hechsher, that's a reliable hechsher on the box, you're good to go.
Now, will the kashrus symbol be visible on these boxes?
Usually not very good.
Okay.
So what we do on our website, and I'm happy to email to anybody that needs it, but you can get it on both our app, our website. We can email it to you, call it in even.
When you're saying our app, you're talking about CRC?
CRC, thank you.
Chicago Rabbinical Council.
CRC Kosher or crckosher.org. We have a list of the brand and the flavor to state, as long as it's coming from, Fanta, strawberry bomb, then even if it doesn't have a hechsher on the box, you can drink it.
But that's an important point. Just because Fanta, it may be good for some flavors, it doesn't mean all the flavors.
That's
so
right.
There's the brand,
Right.
and then there's the flavor. People should check both.
Right. And there are a couple of flavors that are not kosher, and some flavors that are dairy. Milk chol stam. So we need to know that also. Now, why is it enough to do that? And what about the third scenario, where you walk in and they're not letting you behind, you can't get behind there? Can you rely on the word Coca-Cola?
Right.
You want to take Coca-Cola. So surprisingly, yes. And why is that? It's very interesting. We're in hashgacha. What does hashgacha do? We audit. You know who else audits? 7-Eleven. Coca-Cola audits. They don't want you, the consumer, to buy a Coca-Cola Slurpee and it tastes like a knockoff.
An off-brand.
That hurts their brand. So they have their own mashkichim that come unannounced and make sure that if it says Coca-Cola and they're using our logo, that it's like that in the back.
So in the kashrus vernacular, there's a mirsis.
Somewhat.
Meaning that there's a fear that if they deviate.
There's another thing in Kashrus. All the time we look at other outside. If Moshe famously used that for chol stam, that's different, halachically different. It's called anan sahadi, which is a different halacha. but it's loosely related to the concept where if you have that. So we do have that. Those would be the three scenarios. With a hechsher, go verify yourself that it's coming from a box, which is good for Wawas and all these places. And then that's the best, that's the most practical. And then in certain scenarios, for sure for 7-Eleven, you could be somech that if it says a national brand and you know that that brand is kosher, like you're always going to be safe with the Coca-Cola flavor, the plain old. Otherwise it could be a problem. Now, that's with 7-Eleven because they have that. What about the Wawas, the other places? Every time I go to Lakewood, I have them, okay, I got to go visit. I have friends that keep texting me, please go to this and this place, and my kids need to go there, and I may even
check it out.
To check it out. I may even be in Lakewood this afternoon. So if I remember, bli neder, I'll walk in looking all authoritative and say, I'm coming from the kosher or whatever. Can you let me in the back? But the truth is, it can change. It could change.
Right.
And there are horror stories where I know one city, it was a really hot summer and they ran out and they did get a knockoff.
Oh, really?
And it did happen. It did happen. I believe it was in Detroit. Is this the Dover show, shchiach? I don't think so, but that's the story. Now,
as far you mentioned dairy, and you mentioned that there are non-kosher flavors.
Right.
The fact that they're in the same machine, is that a problem?
It's a great question because it's a shiloh of kavush, right? So I delve deep into the icy pool of understanding how slurpees are made and how long it takes to make it at what temperature, as well as how long it actually stays in the barrel, and how big it is, and how often it gets replaced. Fascinating stuff. The short answer is that it doesn't stay long enough to have kavush. But think about this. Let's say they're changing over from a kosher to a non-kosher flavor. Do you think they clean it out? No way. You know why? The kids love a mix.
Exactly.
They love some yellow goo-goo, whatever going into their purple, who knows what, right? So they don't clean it out. What about that? So that's really a great question. So maybe if you're getting something that you know is kosher and it comes out little colory from a different flavor, maybe you could stay away from that. You could talk in halacha that it would be batel,
right.
And the amount of actual treif is for sure going to be batel and all of that. So you have what to work with when we sit in the Beis Medrash and talk it through. But it's actually a live question. One other thing that's fascinating about slurpees that I noticed is if you know how you take water and sugar and at what temperatures you get the right consistency, you'll know that it's hard to do that when it's diet. Because it's diet.
Really?
Yeah. Because sugar and water and flavor freeze at one temperature. If you go to a different temperature, if you take the sugar out and substitute it for some sort of sugar substitute, to the whole different flavor. And the machines aren't set to complete it.
So it won't dissolve at the same temperature.
It'll come out either as a rock or as water. So what does it have to do with kosher? So I remember looking into one of the famous I think it was a Diet Pepsi, when they had a Diet Pepsi Slurpee. So they substituted the closest thing they can find to sugar, which would be dietetic, but also freeze, and that was something called tagatose. Tagatose is a byproduct of whey, which is a byproduct of cheese. So very fascinating. Now, maybe the amount of tagatose is batel, but as you know in halacha, there's something called davar hamayim. You can't say something. The word batel means it's nullified as if it's not there. But if you have something that even though it's teeny amount, but it actually does something, how can you say logically that's batel? Great question to decide if the tagatose it makes it the way that form if it's there or not. This is something that comes up all the time. So that's why.
And again, this is something that would be relevant to a Slurpee, but not to the regular drink.
Correct.
Which is where people maybe get confused.
Very good, very good. So you might think, Diet Pepsi.
Right.
But do you know you have to add in something dairy in order for it to freeze everything? Fascinating stuff. But this concept of davar hamayim, it comes up all over in all types of food. Certainly when you take a flavor, which is a very, very small amount, you drop it into a soda bottle, and the rest of the bottle is, water and carbon and sugar, all innocuous, all easy from a Kashrus standpoint. And this is a teeny, teeny amount. There's no way you can say that, okay, and I'll tell you a story on soda, okay? In Chicago, we call it pop, so soda pop. I remember the first time I went into a very, very large soda factory, and they were making a very popular cherry soda. Now, I can't tell you the name for legal reasons of what it was, but I looked at the formula, and there were 3 things in this soda on all the stores in the supermarket. Trust me, well-known brand, cherry type thing. Here were the 3 non-kosher in the word, and on the label it said water, carbon, sugar, and the very last thing was flavor because it's the smallest amount. But here's what was in the flavor. A long list of things. It takes 26 things to make one flavor. Here were the 3 non-kosher. Ready? Sherry wine, Stam Yenim, obviously. Civet. Civet.
What is that?
What is civet, right? Civet comes from a cat. A cat. Up in some area. I don't know who the first person that saw a cat and said, I'm putting that in my soda, okay? And the last thing, if you really want to gross kids out, was castoreum. What is that? That comes from the bottom half of some sort of beaver, South American beaver. Crazy stuff in the soda. There's no way you would know that. Very popular brand. And of course we couldn't certify it, but who knows if everyone was buying, the ginger ale of that brand, which everybody was, or this, and so there's a cherry. Let me grab it off the thing. Oh my gosh, we need to be educated. We need to understand this. So that's what I just wanted to get to that point about the word flavor. When you see a word flavor, if you're buying tea, okay, and it has this, it has that, and it has the word flavor, stay away. It needs a good texture. Any word flavor could have all sorts of funny things going on there, and it won't be batel based on this concept of
Davar HaMaimed. So it's important to be an educated consumer. That's the bottom line. I do want to point out, and I'm wondering if you would agree, I've been to 7-Elevens, especially in predominantly Jewish areas, where they're smart enough to know to have a list on the side of the machine from the CRC, from the Star K, from whoever it might be, with the kosher flavors. But, as we've spoken about many times, things are always changing. Right. How old is that list?
Great
Where did that list really come from?
Right.
I mean, is it the exact list from the certifying agency? Was it copied over? The truth is that you really can't rely on that list posted by the store. It's not, unless it's certified by an agency. Right. Then the agency posts the sign. Right. But if the store itself posted that sign telling you which flavors are kosher, buyer beware. Do your own research. Go onto the CRC website or app, find out what flavors. I mean,
that's the best. So, obviously when kids go in and they don't have, Baruch Hashem, access to smartphones and apps and websites, it's a little harder, but you're 100% right. So the adult taking them should see if it's updated. But great point about outdated kosher letters. Right. Can I just say another thing?
Sure.
Always read the kosher letter. Always read the kosher letter. You'd be shocked. I went into a city where, only 3 restaurants there. And, I'm a kashrus, so I read the kosher letters. And it says there on the thing, this place is certified, very kosher v'rav. This place is certified as kosher, except for anything to do with salads. We take no responsibility for salads because, Talayim was too difficult. Right. The whole plate, it was a vegan place. What am I going to have, a carrot? It was great. No, but the point is, he felt that this Rav Amakshir needed to do what he needed to do for his community, at least give him something. Right. And the fact that he wrote on the kosher letter, but I can tell you that most guests from out of town are not reading kosher letters. They're not looking at expiration dates on slurpee letters and whatnot. So always at least start an educated kosher consumer, like Mr. Sims once said, he didn't say the kosher part, is the best consumer. Become educated. Look at the kosher letters. Sometimes you may be the only guy that week that asked them, are you kosher? Can I see your kosher letter? you'd be shocked sometimes what it says on there. You know, it's not Chol of Yisrael,
Right.
it's not this and not that. Become educated.
But you bring up a good point about children also. Very often, especially because the Slurpee is a relatively cheap item for $1 or $2, so the kids go in themselves and they buy it and they don't know.
Right.
Perhaps those who are watching this will take the next time they go with their children, go with the paper, show the kids what the story is.
Love it.
You know, show them this is Coca-Cola,
How
it's
to
okay.
buy,
How to buy. Teach the children.
Wow.
If we teach them when they're young, then as they get older, they'll know, hold on, I can't take anything for granted. You know, always be...
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it's far-reaching.
Chabdeyu v'chashdeyu.
Perfect understanding of just, and that will spread to other areas in Kashrus. I love that.
And at the end of the day, that's really the goal of this Kashrus Awareness Project.
Right.
It's about education.
Like
Like you said, an educated consumer. It's about helping people, educating them. And Rabbi Fishbane, we're indebted to you because you're helping us do this. So
such a
thank
pleasure.
you for your commentary on Slurpee, and
Thank
we look
you.
forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.